It is about 3:53. It's not about 3:53, it is 3:53. I'm gonna go home after I talk to you guys. Today I'm just gonna share just like some reflections or some moments of clarity I had to have this morning as I got ready for work, and then also like what we did in class today. So yesterday, if you watched the vlog, like I just ended the day just like done, frustrated, overwhelmed, stress. The trigger point was just the battery of my car dying and me not being able to go to Orange Theory. But I think what that really was for me was it was just like one more thing that happened during a week that I just found like very just mentally exhausting, to some degree emotionally exhausting, because in the last week or so I have just felt like that I organized this whole house system, this whole Who's House system that we're doing at school. It's brand new. It's not anything that I invented. We're basically mimicking, you know, the idea that Ron Clark Academy came up with and that many schools have done. And going into organizing this and presenting this to staff and rolling this out, I knew and I was told not everybody's going to be on board. There's going to be some people that are harder to kind of get on board than others. Some people are going to have things to say, you know, all of that. I knew that. And for the most part, I would say the vast majority of the staff here is very supportive, very patient. They're into it. They know that we're in the beginning stages of all this and that it's growing. But I have had some interactions in the past week with just different parts of like campus. Like some are teachers, some administrative conversations that have just been like frustrating in different ways, because there have been times where I felt like I need a little bit more like help, because at the end of the day, like I feel responsible for all of this. Like if it doesn't go well, like ultimately it's on my shoulders, because this is something that I brought to campus. And I have a great group of people that have volunteered to help, as well as, well, no, they all volunteered. They signed up to help. So that has been very helpful. But I think just dealing with colleagues that have just made it seem like they don't like the idea of doing this, or that this is somehow making their lives more difficult, or that I'm not doing my job and like making it clear to them, that's been very frustrating, because I've spent a lot of time over the summer and during the school year either planning, organizing, thinking things through, or communicating information about it and making sure everybody understood like how things work and what was going on. And so to feel like you're putting a lot of time and energy into something and then being told that no, you're not, is very challenging. And so after the day that I had yesterday and some of the feelings that I've had for the past week or so, this morning I had to wake up and tell myself, like, I had to remind myself of the book that I read years ago called The Energy Bus, which is basically saying like you have to get to a point where you don't allow someone's energy that you perceive to be less than positive to affect your personal energy or your mental space or what you're doing, if you know that what you're doing is with good intent and right. And so most of the time I keep that in mind and I operate out of that. But every now and then, I guess, when you just get to a point where you feel like it's been a lot, or you're under a lot of stress, or you're tired, you lose sight of that. So this morning I just had to remind myself of that, and just remind myself that what I can control is me and what happens in my classroom and how my students feel, and you know, the experience they have in my room, and that's really it. And outside of that, I can influence and try to help, but I can't control it. I can't control how someone's going to react. I can't control how someone's going to feel, because people react and feel the way they feel for different reasons, and some of them may have something to do with what I've done or said, and if that's the case and I can fix that, I will. But some of it has nothing to do with me, and I have to remember that. So I'm just kind of at a place where I'm like, do you, boo? Basically, like, just do you. You can't really do anything else but be who you are and be yourself. And I'm satisfied with who I am, and I feel like I'm a good person, and that my heart is in the right place, and that I'm giving my all as a teacher. So that's all I can do, and try and remember that more often. Sometimes it's just hard to remember that. So that's just a little personal reflection as a professional, as a teacher. You guys are very lovely people and are always very kind in the comments, and that is fantastic, but not everybody is a fan of latawnya. However, I will say this is like God working. So, you know, I was feeling a little down this morning, like feeling like, basically I think I just feel sometimes in this process and being relatively new to this staff, like sometimes I feel misunderstood because this staff is much larger than the staffs were at the 2 schools that I worked at before, because I was working at elementary schools and this is a middle school, and these staffs tend to be larger because teachers teach specific subjects. So quite often I feel like I'm misunderstood, and that there's some people that don't really like know me and or get me and misinterpret who I am and what I'm about, and so that's disheartening. So with that being said, you know, this morning I had to like pep talk myself and say you're okay. Today when I was teaching the social studies or this history lesson through Nearpod, which I'm going to talk about in a second, we had a tech guy in here, our campus tech guy had to come in because we were having some issues with a handful of Chromebooks. So as he was sitting fixing these Chromebooks, he was obviously like seeing and hearing the lesson on the Boston Massacre that I was giving. And so when we finished, or he finished everything and we were on lunch, and Taylor and I were walking to the office, or walking back from the office, and he was leaving my classroom walking to the office, and our paths crossed, he stopped me to let me know, you know, I got the Chromebooks fixed, and he's like, and also I just wanted to let you know that I really appreciate what you were doing in there, like what you were teaching in there and the lesson and the way that you were presenting it to students, because it's so important to understand like historically that there are different perspectives and that there's different viewpoints, because that's what this lesson is really all about, and people's involvement in a situation really affects how they report it. So he was like, I just wanted to let you know, like I have a daughter, and it's one of those things where I hope that when my daughter is that age that she has a teacher that does that for her. So I told him I really needed to hear that. Thank you so much. So that made me feel much better. So we ended on a good note there. As far as the lesson itself and teaching updates, what I was going to share with you yesterday before everything just fell apart was COVID update. In my district, we now have to show proof of vaccination. So we had to upload our vaccination information on, like, I think it was a website. Like, there was a website I went to that gave me like a QR code that showed my vaccination information, and then I had to make sure that there was a copy of that vaccination information on like the district's webpage or something. So we had to get that submitted and done by today. I sent that over yesterday. And there was something else COVID related I was going to say, but I can't remember. Did that? I don't know. What was it? I feel like this happens every vlog. I'm just getting old. Well, nevertheless, I had to do that. I uploaded it. I provided proof that I was vaccinated. So as far as learning today, we didn't do any of the monkey's paw today, which makes us more behind than we already are, but that's okay. Because the other thing that I just realized is that I've always been this way. I am probably behind everybody on my team in terms of where we're at with study sync, and I was that way in 5th grade and 3rd grade. I'm just a very slow teacher, I think, but I just like to think that I'm just being really thorough and like taking my time. I'm never that teacher that's like, we got a pacing guide and this pacing guide says that by the end of the school year I have to have done all these lessons. I'm always aspiring to that, but I'm never going to rush myself or my students just to say that I did it. I believe that it's more important to be thorough than it is to be complete, if that makes sense. So we didn't do any of that today. We did have a little bit of time after history, but I let them listen to all your twisted secrets because we had like 15 minutes and there's no point in starting the next step of the writing with the monkey's paw. So we did this lesson through Nearpod, and what I mentioned earlier in the week is that what I like about this lesson is that it integrates a Stanford history education lesson that I like to do within the Nearpod lesson itself. So it's like I was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And so basically they're learning about the Boston Massacre, they're learning about the events that led up to it, and they're also learning as to why the Boston Massacre and the Boston Tea Party are considered like major events, like in the chain of events that led to the Revolutionary War. The other thing they're learning about is just the fact that people can experience the same historical event but reported in different ways. So there were two documents. There was a document A and a document B that they ended up looking at. Document A is told from the perspective of a captain from the British military, and document B is told from the perspective of a Bostonian. So we read, obviously, the background information. We definitely sourced the documents. Before we read the actual documents, I talked to them about the lunchroom fight activity we did, and although that was a fun activity, just what was the purpose of that? So they knew that it was about sourcing and cooperation and bias, and how people's involvement in something affects how they report it. So after we acknowledged that and remembered that, then we read the documents themselves. So I read out loud one paragraph at a time, and I told them, as I'm reading these different sections, I want you to highlight anything that stands out because it feels biased, because the language is very specific, because it's something that could affect the way that the story is being told by that person. So we did that for both documents. So everything blue here is what the kids said that they felt like should be noted. We did that for both documents, and then there were questions on Nearpod that they had to answer that was asking them who wrote the document, when was it written, why would they have written this, is the source reliable, why or why not, is there any cooperation between the two documents, according to this document, whose fault is it in regards to the Boston Massacre, according to this document, what happened at the Boston Massacre or during the Boston Massacre. So just really focusing them on not what do you think happened, but based on how this person's reporting it, what happened. And so it was a really good activity. And so that was pretty much the end of this whole Nearpod lesson. I think there's like a group question and then a collaborate board that I don't think that we'll do, because I feel like we accomplished what I want to accomplish with this lesson. So with the last class I had of the day, I didn't do this with my first class. I asked them one of the questions that Nearpod asked and just told them to hold up their fingers. 1 meaning very confident, 2 meaning somewhat confident, and 3 meaning not confident at all. So I asked them, how confident are you that you could explain the Boston Massacre to someone? And most, if not everyone, had up a 1 or a 2. Most of them said 2. And I would expect it's because they still don't really know exactly what happened at the Boston Massacre, because it really depends on, you know, who you talk to. So they did really well in both classes with that, identifying the things that they felt like were biased or skewed, and they were accurate. And that was it. That took time. And so after that, in each class, we had about 15 minutes left. So we listened to All Your Twisted Secrets. I'm happy to report that both classes are now in pretty much the same spot. There was a pretty big gap there at one point. They're still enjoying it. There's this character named Scott that's just everybody likes. Scott is the cool kid. He's the one that's like the stoner of the group, the rebel, and they, boys and girls, are just like, I just love Scott. But they also think that Scott might be the one that's behind this bomb that's put in this room. And I'm like, wouldn't that be crazy if Scott is the one that is doing all this and you guys love him so much? And they're like, but we would still love him. So we have been listening to that. They're doing a really good job of like making predictions and kind of saying, I think this, or making inferences based on what the characters are doing. So it's been great. So I'm about to head out. I might stop at Target to get some organizational things, and then I'm gonna go home and just, I might exercise, put on my pajamas early, and just work. Get things done that I've been trying to get done all week and just get it done. We don't have students on Monday, but it's an in-service day, so I'm leaving and just telling myself the room doesn't have to be ready for Monday because nobody's coming. But that's it. Thank you to everyone that sent a nice comment, whether it was here or on Instagram, just encouraging me and letting me know to hang in there, that you were feeling the same way. I also want to thank, where's my phone? I also want to thank, I think the name is Dana or Dana, for the Starbucks treat and brightening my day. I am so fortunate to have like a community of people that are supportive, especially in times like these. And yeah, that's it. So if you enjoyed today's vlog, please give this a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. And if you're not following me on Instagram, you can head over there and follow me at Smarty Style. And as always, I hope that you guys are well. And if you're not well, please be well. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.